So, Pressure. We all know and love it. Whether it's the characters, the rooms, the monsters. Although some might disagree with me on that last one, we all love it. But what about the lesser known stuff? You know, stuff that almost nobody talks about. Stuff that's so unknown that I didn't even know existed up until making this video. Pressure is infamously known to have a bunch of recognizable references and characters. But there's always this weird and generally less talked about side of the game that I find very interesting. Whether it's in the current modern day of Pressure or in its old days. So today we're gonna explore this weird side. In this video, I will go over some of the most unknown and unspoken topics of Pressure, gradually going from stuff that everyone knows about to stuff that are either never mentioned at all or simply just forgotten, also known as an Iceberg video. So without further ado, let's begin. Starting off with stuff that everybody knows about, we have Sebastian and Painter. I honestly don't think these two need an introduction. I mean, if you've played the recent Pressure update or at least seen videos of it, you know exactly who these two are. Sebastian is known as the game's shopkeeper, and Painter is known as this rogue AI that hijacks the black site's technology and constantly tries to kill you. Whether it's through turrets, speakers, good people, the firewall, he wants you dead. But the reason he wants you dead is because of Sebastian. You see, because Sebastian and Painter both want to escape the black site, Sebastian made a deal with Painter. He wants Painter to delay the retrieval of the crystal as much as possible by any means necessary, which is why Painter is constantly trying to kill you as you progress through the game. Now we have the Trench Bleeders. These giant robots were created by Urban Shade to act as moving oil platforms, which their only purpose is to extract as much oil as possible from the Let Van zone. That's the only reason they exist. Once all the oil is found and extracted from the Let Van zone, all three Trench Bleeders would simultaneously deactivate and get scrapped because, you know, they're no longer useful. Except for Lucy, because they want her to explore the Let Van zone by herself. The Trench Bleeders are unsurprisingly the biggest known things in Pressure, standing at 1,500 studs, which for comparison is almost as big as entire buildings. And they're all controlled by Navi, which allows them to continue working even when there's a lockdown happening. Now we have the Nost subdivision, which is a subdivision created by Urban Shade to explore and handle everything related to the Bandlands, aka the place where you get revived, aka Pressure's version of hell. I'm not gonna go over the entire history of it, but basically what you need to know is that whenever Urban Shade first got into the Bandlands, they came across the Guardian Angel, which did not want them to enter. He tried to peacefully get them back to Earth, but he accidentally killed one of their explorers by stomping on them, which is when Urban Shade brought in a group of Heaven Piercer tanks and completely blew off the Angel's lower half. They then took him into the black side and started conducting tests on him. Meanwhile, in the Bandlands, the devil was pleased with Urban Shade defeating the Guardian Angel, and in return made a deal with them. They will now be able to freely roam the Bandlands and even get revived through Lady Death. There's honestly a lot more stuff related to the Bandlands like Nolly and Paranoia's box, but that's a story for another time. So yeah, Nost basically just handles everything Bandlands related. Now we have the Man from the Mindscape. This is a very well-known little jump scare guy thing that has a 1 in 500 chance of appearing when you open a door. There isn't much known about him since he's a very mysterious entity, but what we do know is that he originates from the Mindscape, if you somehow couldn't tell by his name, which is an astral plane that looks like a white void with a bunch of floating cogwheels and gears. The Man from the Mindscape has been reported to take people with him into the Mindscape, which only happens if the player isn't looking at him, but obviously since he appears directly in front of you, it basically never happens. There's still approximately a 0.23% chance that he can take you even when you are looking at him, but obviously that's just theoretical and it doesn't actually happen in the real game. Oh yeah, and once you're in the Mindscape, there's no known way to escape, so that's fun. Now we have the Decaying Winter collab. As you might have guessed, this is a collab between Pressure and Decaying Winter. If you don't know what Decaying Winter is, it's basically a survival game where you're stranded on a different planet and you constantly get attacked by the things that inhabit it, such as hostile scavengers, raiders, supernatural enemies, and so on and so forth. This collab added one new entity along with one new room. The entity in question is the Redeemer, which is a revolver from Decaying Winter. Once you pick up this revolver, a demon known as the Hanger will appear and will slowly approach you. While it does that, it tries to take control of your hand and make you, how do I say this in a kid-friendly way? It pretty much tries to make you pull the trigger on yourself, which is actually what the original Hanger enemy does in Decaying Winter. It even has the same resist her influence minigame where you have to spam E to overcome her urge. Once you do that, you end up regaining control and you shoot her. And if you take too long, she will eventually reach you and she'll start stabbing you. Oh yeah, and that new collab room that I mentioned is literally just a normal room with a drawer. And inside that drawer is the revolver. Yeah, that's basically it. Now we have the Witching Hour, A60, and Harbinger. All three of these are the most well-known quote-unquote rare monsters. Witching Hour is the monster that kills you if you play pressure at 3 AM, or the monster that kills you if you take too long in the vault. A60 is the main monster of Rooms, the first Doors genre type game on Roblox, and Harbinger is basically Pandemonium but like 5 times harder and can only appear in endless mode. All 3 of these monsters are pretty rare. Technically not the Witching Hour because you can just set your time to 3 AM and that'll spawn them, but I'm sure you're all familiar with them. And lastly, we have the Artifice badge. This is a collab between Pressure and the Auric team, which includes the games Survive the Night and Before the Dawn. This collab added 2 notoriously rare rooms, which are the Gambling Room and the Cabin Room, and more recently the Chest Room, which are all direct references to Survive the Night and Before the Dawn. In the Gambling Room, you can actually find the owner of the Auric team, Rack Jumper, as well as his friend Ice, which sells you the Ice's brew drink. All the drink does is give you 25 extra health, and yeah, that's it. As for the Artifice badge itself, you need to buy and drink the party special. It can either be found in the cabin or in the Gambling Room, or alternatively, you can find the Artifice chest room and open it, which gives you the badge as well. But once you open it, be ready for a surprise. You can also get the party special from the Raveyard, which is the easiest way to get the Artifice badge. Now we're starting to get to the stuff that's still known, but not by a lot of people. We have the developer exclusive monsters. These are monsters that, you'll never guess, can only be spawned by developers. These monsters include Rush, Ambush, and Lights Out. 2 of these are direct references to Doors, while the other one was primarily used for the first Pressure trailer. Rush functions exactly like Angler, while Ambush functions exactly the same as Frogger, except the only difference is he's able to rebound more than once. And apparently he's a lot faster than Frogger, but I can't really confirm that. Both of them don't have custom jump scares, instead they just use Angler and Frogger's jump scare respectively, and Lights Out has no jump scare because it can't kill you. The only thing it can do is, well, break lights. The Death Angel, aka the Harbinger, was considered a developer exclusive entity as well prior to the 4.5 update, where he was renamed to Harbinger and would appear naturally in endless mode if you were unlucky enough, or lucky depending on if you were trying to get his badge. Now we have Stairwell 87, which doesn't exist. No, I'm just kidding. Stairwell 87 doesn't exist. It's a very rare room that can only be found in heavy containment. Once you enter it, the door locks behind you and the only way you can go is down. Through the staircase. If you descend too far down, a scary monster appears and it'll chase you back up to the start. But obviously, the door is closed and death is inevitable. Once you die, you'll receive the Stairwell 87 doesn't exist document, where the only thing it says on the document is Stairwell 87 doesn't exist. The stairwell itself is a direct reference to SCP-087, which in of itself is a staircase that has a monster that appears if you go too far down. However, the doesn't exist part of the document is the most mysterious part of it. Is it intentionally described this way because Urban Shade doesn't want you to find the staircase? Is there more to the staircase they don't want you to know about? I don't know, but what I do know for certain is that Stairwell 87 doesn't exist. Now we have the developer exclusive items. These items range from a chainsaw to a laser gun to an umbrella that can change colors, a landmine detonator, a stun stick, and possibly a bunch of other items that we have no idea about. I actually got to experience some of these items like the chainsaw and the laser gun. The chainsaw is pretty funny because you can just throw it at someone and it lodges into their body, and the laser gun can basically just insta-kill anyone. It does have a limited usage amount though, so use it wisely if you're somehow lucky enough to get it. Now we have the 3 Nights at the Black Site mode. This was a 2025 April Fool's event where it's pretty much 5 nights at Freddy's. You'd be placed in an office and you had to survive until 6 AM while pressure monsters would try to enter your office. The main entity was Sebastian, but monsters like Pandemonium and Jerry, or the Crooked, were there as well. And obviously every night gets harder and harder as you go. There was also a custom night mode where you can change the entity's AI value to whatever you want. The higher the AI value is, the more active they become. And as you might have guessed, if you survive the custom night with every entity's AI value being set to maximum, which was 20, aka the 2020 mode, you'd get a badge. You'd also get a badge for just surviving all 3 nights. The whole thing was obviously just a joke, and they even made a whole trailer for it, which I think is hilarious. Now we have the Evil mode, which was the 2024 April Fool's event. This was a few months before the game's official release, and if you've been playing Pressure during this period, you'd be considered an OG. Basically how this mode would work is at the starting room there was a code breacher door. Behind that door is a button with a randomized item. Once you press the button, the lights would go out and the educator, aka Baldi, spawns in. You'll now need to make it to the end of the game while Baldi slowly chases after you. Oh yeah, and he was able to no-clip through walls. Infestation was also enraged by default, and because the lights were out, you wouldn't be able to tell when an entity would spawn because, you know, the lights couldn't flicker. Once you make it far enough through the game, you'd get a weird looking keycard room. Opening the keycard door leads you to the schoolhouse room, room, which was the first of 2 grand encounters in evil mode. Basically, what you had to do is find and collect 7 notebooks while the educator tries to catch you. Once you collect all 7 notebooks, the lights go out again and you'd have to exit the schoolhouse. Once you exit the schoolhouse, the mode resumes as normal. Until you get past the ridge and you reach the second and final schoolhouse, which is the same as the first schoolhouse, except this time the lights are automatically off, unlike the first one where you can actually see where you're going. Once you get all 7 notebooks and escape the schoolhouse, you reach this absolute heat of an ending room, where the educator congratulates you and you receive the badge along with the notebook item in the dead drop shop. The notebook item itself is, well, a notebook that gives you a certain item if you solve all 3 math problems within. The items can range from very common items like the code breacher and medkit, to kind of rare items like the blacklight, to extremely rare items like the splorglite and necrobloxicon. It's also worth mentioning that the notebook costed 150 kroner, so every time you got an item you didn't want, you kinda just had to stick with it and continue. Pretty much the first instance of gambling and pressure, except you actually lose your money instead of in-game data, which made it even more annoying if you got bad items. There was also a badge for beating evil mode, having gotten every problem in the notebooks incorrect. So yeah, that was fun. Now we have the rare rooms and rare room types. Most of these are already known, like the flesh rooms, the mindscape room, silent hill rooms, doors and pressure, identity fraud hallways. But there were also ones like the back rooms, which are so unbelievably rare there's barely any footage of them. Ocean of blood, intentionally unfinished room 1 and 2, the Z fighting room, suffering leaves room, dooring out right now, and more recently this room, which has been dubbed the rarest room in the worth the wait update. There's also this room that I've never seen before in my life despite having nearly 300 hours on the game, and there's supposedly a room so rare that only a handful of people have ever gotten it. It's a backup room that only appears if something in the room generating code goes wrong, which is basically just never. Now we have the upcoming monsters, which include the upper class coffin, sweeping angels, Slenderman, and corpse of Bell. We already know what the upper class coffin looks like, and they can actually be found inside heavy containment. The way they work is when they see you, they charge towards you, open their coffin, and trap you inside. Sweeping angels look pretty much similar to the upper class coffin, but as you could have imagined, they don't work the same. As their name suggests, they have the weeping angel mechanic. Look at them, they don't move. Look away from them, they move. However, with the addition of Jerry, or the Crooked, which has the exact same mechanic, I kinda doubt the sweeping angels would actually get added to the game. Or who knows, maybe they will. We also have the corpse of Bell, which is an underwater monster. Not much is known about this one, but we do know what they look like. And lastly, we have Slenderman, which you'd be wrong if you thought it was this type of Slenderman. The Slenderman looks like this, and it is unknown what he does or how he functions. I honestly don't know why he's missing 89% of his body, but I'm not one to judge. It's also worth noting that all the monsters that I just mentioned might either get a complete change or get scrapped entirely in the future. I remember seeing that the upper class coffin was planned to release in the Friendly Fire update, and to this day it's still not in the game. Well, you know, apart from it being in that one heavy containment room. Now we have Dock 218. This is a very weird room located a few rooms away from the end of the ridge behind the code breacher door. Inside this door is a hidden dock that serves as the escape route for both Painter and Sebastian out of the Hadal Black site. You see, a rival organization to Urban Shade named Innovations Inc. has been trying to get Sebastian out of the black site for as long as possible, you know, due to the amount of Urban Shade data he's gathered from selling items to players. And since Innovation Inc. wants to get their hands on that sweet Urban Shade data to use against them, and they know how much Sebastian hates Urban Shade, they both made a deal with each other. Kind of like how Sebastian made a deal with Painter, which is why he cares so much for Painter and why he gets so angry when you destroy him. Speaking of which, you can actually see Painter on one of the boxes in that room. Dock 218, as far as I know, is pretty much just an abandoned dock, which is why both Sebastian and Painter chose this as an escape route. And fun fact, in Sebastian's room there's a radio. If you change the frequency on this radio, you can hear a very cryptic message.
Priority Echo, 12 packages, sealed and ready. Dock 218. Innovation vessel will arrive once skies are clear. Submersible class. Extraction includes you and 1. This message will repeat. Priority Echo.
This message pretty much says that the Innovations Inc. submarine will arrive when they think the area is safe. They also state that 12 packages are sealed and ready, which possibly refers to the ungodly amount of boxes at the dock that are ready to be transported out of the black site. They also say that the extraction includes you and 1, which refers to Sebastian and Painter. So yeah, this whole radio message thing is pretty much broadcasting Sebastian and Painter's escape plan, which is why Sebastian complains when he sees you hearing this message. And lastly, we have the day where pressure was nearly sold. Actually, this happened twice. The first instance of this happening was during December 2024, where due to the massive amounts of drama and harassment the developers had to endure during that period, Zeal tried to get rid of the game as fast as possible so he wouldn't have to deal with the hateful part of the community. And he tried doing that by putting pressure on sale for $100,000. Eventually, he calmed down and reverted his decision. That was also the day where the official pressure Discord server went informational, and a community server was made shortly after. There was also a second instance of pressure nearly getting sold, which was during March of 2025. In a now deleted message, Zeal states that he was offered 8 figures for his game by an unknown game studio. At the time, he hated working on pressure, and the sheer amount of money that he was offered along with the fact that he didn't have to work on pressure anymore really made him lean towards selling the game. But luckily, he turned it down. He did state that he would quit working on pressure, but after being convinced not to, he came back and made an apology video. Now you gotta understand, 8 figures is a ton of money, around $10 million. So the fact that he just turned it down and said no, it really ticked him off for the rest of that day, and he couldn't stop thinking about that single decision. But we're all glad that the game wasn't sold in the end, because if it was, I'd hate to imagine how the game would have continued from there. But regardless, both of these days were the lowest pressure has ever been. Now we're starting to get into the stuff that are either mostly unknown or almost completely forgotten. Starting off with the turret variants. Yes, believe it or not, there used to be different variants to the turrets, with those being the void turrets, explosive turrets, and incendiary turrets, aka fire turrets. Back then, during 4.5, the void turrets had a small chance of appearing in endless mode in one specific room, and instead of normal bullets, they have poisonous bullets. They deal less damage than the normal turrets, but the poison effect they apply lasts for 1 minute, which deals 1 damage per 2 seconds, amounting to 30 damage in total. And yeah, that's basically all they do. The void turrets were shortly removed not too long after the 4.5 update released, and it is highly unclear as to why they were added and then just removed, possibly to test and mess around with modified versions of the turret. Oh yeah, if you were wondering about the explosive and fire turrets, those are admin only. I did get the chance to experience them, and man, they were chaotic. There is a possibility that we may see different turret types in the future, but only time will tell. Now we have the scrapped items and scrapped mechanics. In the items category, we have items like the heavy medkit, master code breacher, and the bloxy cola along with the witch's brew. The heavy medkit was literally just a normal medkit, except instead of healing 60 health, it heals 100. Along with a 25 health overheal, which means that you'll have 125 health instead of 100. But obviously we have the Perithecine needle now, so yeah, I don't know. The master code breacher was also just a normal code breacher, except instead of only being able to use it once, you would have been able to use it 3 times, which I can see why that was scrapped. I mean, at that point, you're just asking for too much. And lastly, we have the bloxy cola and witch's brew. Those 2 items would give you a speed boost for a short while, and that's it. Look, I get the concept, but there's a reason it got replaced with the sprint injection. As for the scrapped mechanics, there's 2 in particular that I want to mention, and those are the bush hiding mechanic and the fake shop. There were plans for using bushes to hide from monsters in the oxidizing gardens room generation instead of normal lockers, but they ended up scrapping that and just used normal lockers because I don't know. There was also the fake shop mechanic, where sometimes you'll come across what seems to be Sebastian's shop, except that's not actually Sebastian's shop, and instead it's a trap. People used to believe that good people would attack you if you end up falling for this, but we never got confirmation if that's actually what happens. Matter of fact, we never got confirmation if this fake shop thing would actually get added into the game. That idea has been thrown around ever since the Friendly Fire update, but they've said absolutely nothing about it. Who knows, maybe it will get added in the future. Now we have the scrapped monsters. These include monsters like the Screamer, Watcher, Angry Angler, and Seize. Let's start off with the funniest sounding one, Angry Angler. Not much is known about the Angry Angler, but people speculated that he's related to the game's hard mode, which was a planned game mode that never actually got added into the game. The way he works is literally exactly the same as the normal angler, but he wouldn't flicker lights. This kind of explains why he is thought to be the pink angler seen in this video, because as all of us know, there's already a monster that's currently in game that doesn't flicker lights, which just so happens to be pink. Screamer used to serve as the complete opposite of Angler, where instead of hiding in a locker, you had to not hide in a locker and stay completely still. Similarly to Screamer, Seize would attack players if they move, so basically just Screamer, but it's it's literally Screamer. However, the weirdest one out of all of them is the Watcher. It is unknown as to how the Watcher works, but you can actually find him in-game to this day. If you turn on free cam mode and go behind the dead end door, you can actually see his face right there. And interestingly enough, the Watcher's face is used for Mr. Lopi's jump scare, which explains the visual similarity between the two. Other than that, the Watcher, along with the other monsters I mentioned, remain to be forgotten to this day. Now we have the removed content. This ranges from stuff like the Sewer's room generation to the Regretivator lobby room, some random badges like the Bloodbath badge where you have to play in a group of 12 players and make it to the end with 4 or less players alive. There also used to be some room types that were quietly removed from the game, like the back area room type and the winter gardens. The winter gardens were literally just the oxidizing gardens but covered in snow. Eventually it got reverted back to the normal oxidizing gardens because, you know, winter ended. And fun fact, even the Divine were covered in snow during that period. The back area room type, however, was removed due to soft locking. It's kind of weird because I do remember encountering this room type during the 4.5 update and never even realizing it got removed. Nonetheless, it does kind of suck that this room type was removed because it was actually a pretty cool one. There also used to be a place called the Event Place that was permanently removed. This was the place where you take a picture of yourself using the newly implemented Roblox screenshot system. And then you'd submit your screenshot and that's essentially it. This whole place was only used for the Haunt Roblox event, which was a costume contest where the best costumes would receive exclusive Halloween items, and Pressure just so happened to be a part of that event, but we all know how absolutely terrible that event was. So yeah, the place itself is pretty much a one-on-one replica of the Raveyard with a few modifications to prevent bugs. And lastly, we have the old Bandlands creatures. I don't even know how to describe most of these things, but the only ones I recognize is this smaller version of Nolly and this little mouth thing that I don't know the name of. Interestingly enough, some of these are drawn on one of the Necrobloxicon pages. We can very clearly see that Nolly is there, and we can also see this cross monster thing, along with this one, which I genuinely don't even know how to describe. I'll just call him the grilled cheese monster because, you know, he looks like a grilled cheese. Both him, the cross monster, and Nolly are all in this Bandlands creatures lineup. But interestingly enough, only one of these was added into the Worth the Wait update, which was Nolly, along with this mouth thing, whatever. So it leads me to believe that these were either scrapped or they might appear in the Bandlands in the later parts of the Worth the Wait update. But once again, only time will tell. The Stalebreaker was a scrapped grand encounter that just never really made it into the game. According to Zeal, the Stalebreaker is a war mech that's main purpose is to pretty much be a giant distraction and a morale breaker. He also says that, quote, it allows human soldiers to get the drop on the last enemy. While I'm not entirely sure on what he means by that, I'm assuming he means that the war mech would be able to deploy groups of soldiers while you're distracted by it. And the way you had to beat it is somewhere in the grand encounter room there was a door, and you had to find something in that room to explode that door with and escape. But once you escape, you're not in the clear, as there's a rematch encounter with the Stalebreaker, except in the rematch you actually have weapons this time. You'd be given rocket launchers and your goal was to destroy the Stalebreaker. Once you destroy it, a submarine will surface and that's basically it. The concept of the Stalebreaker being a grand encounter never really made it through because it would, quote, not be suitable for the overhaul. When they say overhaul, they basically just mean the release of the game, which at the time of recording happened exactly a year ago. Yeah, this was way before the whole idea of grand encounters, and there obviously weren't any of those at the time. You would just open doors and that's it. The Ridge did exist, but obviously there wasn't a final encounter afterwards. So the Stalebreaker was pretty much their first idea on a grand encounter. But of course, it didn't make it through, and instead we got the Searchlights. Ever since then, the name Stalebreaker would go on to become a forgotten concept, never to be brought up again. The Alicron was a scrapped machine that's main purpose is to turn blood into any type of color. The way this machine works is they would take a test subject, clone them, and then harvest the blood out of the clone to then be used as paint. There is literally no information on this machine, aside from the fact that it's not made by Urban Shade. Nobody knows why the main purpose of this machine is to extract blood to then be used as paint, and we likely may never know. I personally believe this would have been something similar to the Navi room, where you'd play the game normally up until you find a room that houses closes the alley-cron. Then you'd be able to see the whole harvesting process right in front of you. But yeah, overall it's a very weird and mysterious machine that we may possibly never get an explanation for. The Flesh Mines was a scrapped room type that looks like this. It takes place inside a giant sea serpent, and nobody knows what's inside it. There's literally no images nor any clear visuals of what the Flesh Mines room type itself looks like. Just the beginning of it. Just like the Alleycron, there's close to no information on the Flesh Mines. My guess is that Urban Shade captured the sea serpent, neutralized it, and started actively harvesting the flesh of the serpent from the inside, hence the name Flesh Mines. As for the interior, I would assume it looked something similar to the flesh rooms, which are of course in game, but with some slight alterations like extraction equipment, a bunch of spotlights because of how dark it is, and whatever else you might think is inside a giant sea serpent. Obviously, sea serpents are not real creatures, so it's hard to pinpoint exactly what we're getting ourselves into when we enter the Flesh Mines, but nonetheless, this room type concept never really stuck through and it quickly became forgotten. The finale angler was essentially Pressure's first myth. It's a monster that had a lot of people split with each other on whether it actually existed or not. What it is basically a normal angler but slightly darker and having no eyes. Some people claimed that the finale angler was an extremely rare occurrence that only happens when you enter room 114, hence the name finale angler. And others believed that it was an admin exclusive entity. But the thing is that it never actually existed. This all stems from a really old model of the Ridge Angler, which is the angler that you'll see in the Ridge that has no eyes. Basically that, but the older version. That older version had the name Finale Angler, indicating that this is the final version of the angler you'll see in the Ridge, because, you know, that was basically the finale at the time. There were no grand encounters, so that model was only made to differentiate the normal angler from the Ridge Angler, which after a brief moment was changed from Finale Angler to Ridge Angler. After that change happened, people started speculating that there is a secret, powerful version of the angler called the Finale Angler, which they thought was single-handedly the rarest entity in Pressure, either being an extremely rare 1 in a billion occurrence, or being an admin exclusive entity. But it in fact was none of those. All it was a very brief change in the old Ridge Angler model. After that, the Finale Angler myth died down, where it would then become forgotten, never to be mentioned again. So yeah, that's basically it. Those were the most unknown topics of Pressure, from most known to least known. Let me know down below if I should do more videos like this, because I genuinely had so much fun researching this stuff. Like, I never knew there was a scrapped room type where you had to go inside a sea serpent, or a scrapped grand encounter where you had to go against a giant distraction robot. Also, don't worry, the challenge videos haven't stopped. There will be a lot of those soon. Anyways, thank you for watching.